Evelyn was a quiet woman. She had silver hair that shone softly in the sunlight. Her skin was warm and brown like the rich soil in the garden she loved to tend. She moved slowly, not because she was tired but because she liked to take her time with everything. Evelyn lived in a small town where most people knew her by name. She had lived there for many years, and many people respected her for her kindness and wisdom. One bright morning, Evelyn decided to go to the bank. She needed to take out some money. Her granddaughter was sick and needed medicine that cost more than they had saved. Evelyn wanted to help, so she carefully got dressed and went out. The streets were calm, and the birds sang songs that made the air feel peaceful. Evelyn liked to listen to the birds. They reminded her of the good days when the world seemed gentle and kind. When Evelyn reached the bank, she took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The bell above the door jingled softly, but no one turned to greet her right away. She walked slowly to the counter where the tellers sat behind thick glass windows. Evelyn smiled kindly, but the tellers did not smile back. Instead, they looked at her with cold eyes, as if she was a stranger who did not belong there. Evelyn waited patiently for her turn. The line moved slowly, and she watched people in front of her. Some of them chatted quietly with the tellers, while others smiled and waved to the security guard. But when Evelyn finally stepped up, everything changed. The teller who helped her did not speak with a friendly voice. The woman looked at Evelyn's identification card with suspicion. She asked questions that made Evelyn uncomfortable. "Why do you need this much money?" the teller asked sharply. Evelyn blinked in surprise. She had never been asked such a question at the bank before. She answered softly, "I need to pay for my granddaughter's medicine." The teller did not soften her tone. She asked Evelyn to explain again, as if she did not believe her. The bank manager soon came over and stood behind the teller. He crossed his arms and stared at Evelyn without blinking. "Are you sure this money is yours?" he said loudly enough for others in the bank to hear. Evelyn felt her face grow hot. Her hands trembled, but she kept her voice calm. "Yes, it is my money. I saved it for a long time." The manager did not seem to care about what Evelyn said. He asked to see her bank account details and even suggested that she might be trying to use a fake identity. Evelyn's heart sank. She could not understand why they were treating her like a criminal. She had done nothing wrong. She had been careful with her money, honest and true. Other people in the bank watched this scene quietly. Some looked away, pretending not to see. Others whispered to their friends. But no one spoke up to help Evelyn. She felt very alone even though the room was full of people. The bank staff continued to ask her many questions. They spoke over her and interrupted her answers. Evelyn wanted to tell them to stop, but she held back. The humiliation wrapped around her like a heavy fog. She wanted to cry, but she would not give them the satisfaction. Evelyn's pride was strong. She reminded herself that this moment would pass. She reminded herself that she was more than the harsh words and cold looks. After a long wait, the bank finally gave Evelyn the money she asked for, but the damage was done. Evelyn left the bank with her head held high, but inside, she felt broken. The walk back home was slow and quiet. The birds still sang, but their songs sounded different now. Evelyn wondered why people could be so unkind without reason. When Evelyn returned to her neighborhood, she told her friends what had happened. Their faces filled with anger and sadness. They talked about how often Black people, especially elders like Evelyn, face unfair treatment. Stories flowed from one person to another, stories about times when they were ignored, disrespected, or made to feel small. Evelyn's story spread quickly in the community. People started saying that something had to change. They said that no one should be made to feel invisible or unworthy just because of their skin color or age. The quiet hurt that Evelyn felt was shared by many others. That night, Evelyn sat by the window and looked at the stars. She wished for a world where respect was given to everyone, no matter who they were. She wished for a day when Black elders would not be treated like they did not belong. Evelyn knew that it would take courage to make this change, but she was ready to stand strong. She hoped that her story would help others find their voice too. The day after Evelyn's visit to the bank, the town was buzzing quietly with whispers. People talked in small groups on street corners. They shared what they had heard about the way Evelyn had been treated. Some were angry, some were sad, but most were thinking about what to do next. The story of an elderly black woman being humiliated in a place where she should have been safe touched many hearts. It reminded them all of times when they had felt ignored or disrespected for no good reason. Far away from the small town, in the tall white building in the city, the president was having a busy day. The president was a man who cared deeply about fairness. He believed that every person should be treated with kindness and respect no matter where they came from or how old they were. On this particular morning, he had finished a meeting and was walking down the street to find a bank to withdraw some cash. He did not expect anything unusual to happen. He simply wanted to use the ATM quickly and continue with his day. As the president entered the bank, he noticed something immediately. At the counter, there was an elderly woman standing quietly. Her face looked tired but calm. Her eyes held a sadness that caught his attention. The president could see that she was waiting for help, but the staff did not seem to be treating her well. He saw the teller looking at the woman with suspicion. The manager stood nearby with a serious look on his face. The president watched for a moment and realized that this was the same woman he had heard about in the news. Her name was Evelyn. The president's heart tightened. He remembered the stories his own grandmother used to tell him when he was a child. She had faced many hard times because of her skin color. She had often been treated unfairly and made to feel like she was less than others. The president had never forgotten those stories. Now he saw Evelyn, and it felt like history was repeating itself in front of his eyes. Without hesitation, the president stepped forward. His presence in the bank was noticed by everyone. The chatter stopped, and all eyes turned toward him. The teller looked nervous, and the manager shifted uncomfortably. The president spoke in a calm but strong voice. He asked the teller why she was treating Evelyn with such suspicion. He asked the manager if this was how they treated all their customers. The bank staff tried to explain, but their words sounded weak. They said they were only doing their jobs and following rules. The president listened carefully but did not accept their answers. He told them that no one should be treated with disrespect or accused without proof. He said that it was wrong to judge someone just because of their age or skin color. People in the bank started to feel something change. They saw the president standing up for Evelyn, and it gave them hope. Some of the customers nodded quietly. Others whispered to each other about how brave the president was being. Evelyn looked at the president with surprise and gratitude. She had not expected anyone to come to her side so quickly. The president then spoke directly to Evelyn. He told her that she was not alone and that her story mattered. He promised that he would make sure something was done about what happened to her. Evelyn's heart lifted a little. For the first time since the bank incident, she felt seen and heard. After that day, the president called for an investigation into the bank's treatment of customers, especially black elders. He wanted to know if this was just one case or part of a bigger problem. The news of the president's involvement spread quickly. Newspapers, radio stations, and television channels talked about Evelyn and the president's promise to fight against unfair treatment. Many people reached out to Evelyn. They shared their own stories of being treated badly because of who they were. Some had been ignored, some had been spoken to rudely, and others had been refused service. Evelyn listened to these stories and felt a strong connection to everyone who had suffered in silence. She realized that what had happened to her was not just about one bank. It was about a much larger problem that needed to be fixed. The president did not stop at words. He began working with his team to create new rules to protect people like Evelyn. He wanted banks and other places to treat everyone with respect. He wanted to make sure no one else would have to go through the same pain. Meanwhile, Evelyn became more than just a woman who had been hurt. She became a symbol of hope. People started to look at her story not just with sadness but with a desire to make things better. Community leaders invited Evelyn to speak at meetings. Young people listened carefully as she shared her experience and spoke about the importance of standing up for oneself. At home, Evelyn spent many evenings thinking about the future. She knew the road ahead would not be easy. Changing how people think and act takes time. But she also knew that with the president's help and the support of her community, Things could be different. She wanted to believe that one day, no one would be made to feel small just because of their skin or age. The president continued to visit the town and other communities where people had faced similar treatment. He listened to their stories and promised to keep working until fairness and respect were part of everyday life. The president's words inspired many. They helped people find courage to speak out and demand change. Evelyn's granddaughter was getting better too. The medicine Evelyn had worked so hard to pay for was helping her heal. This gave Evelyn even more strength. She knew she had to keep fighting not just for herself or her family but for everyone who had ever been humiliated or ignored. The day the president announced a nationwide campaign to end bullying and discrimination in public places was a special day. Evelyn watched on television as he spoke directly to the country. He talked about respect, kindness, and the importance of protecting elders. He called on everyone to join together and create a world where no one would feel invisible or unworthy. In the weeks that followed, Evelyn met many new people who wanted to help. They shared ideas about how to stop bullying and create safe spaces for everyone. Schools, churches, and community centers started programs to teach children about respect and fairness. People began to understand that ending discrimination was a job for everyone. One afternoon, Evelyn sat on her porch and looked out at the world. She thought about how much had changed in just a short time. She smiled softly. The silent witness, the president, had seen her pain and decided to stand with her. Together, they had begun a journey toward justice and hope. Evelyn knew the fight was far from over, but now she felt ready. Ready to tell her story, ready to listen to others, and ready to believe that a better tomorrow was possible. The day when Black elders would no longer be humiliated was coming closer. After the president's promise to stand with Evelyn and all those who had faced unfair treatment, the town and many others across the country began to change. Evelyn's story had become much more than just a single event. It was now a spark that was lighting a fire in people's hearts. A fire that was meant to burn away the darkness of hurt and disrespect that many had quietly endured for too long. In Evelyn's neighborhood, people started to gather more often. At the church, at the community center, and even in front yards, neighbors talked about what had happened to Evelyn. They talked about the pain of being treated like they were invisible or less important. They talked about the times when they had been pushed aside, ignored, or spoken to with harsh words just because of their skin color or because they were old. Some people had never said these things out loud before. They had kept their feelings inside because they thought no one would listen or care. But now, with Evelyn's courage and the president's support, they felt brave enough to speak. Their voices joined together and grew stronger every day. Community leaders stepped forward to help organize meetings and discussions. They invited people from different places to come and share their experiences. These meetings were full of tears and laughter, sadness and hope. People listened to each other's stories and realized they were not alone. Many had faced similar challenges, and together, they began to dream about a world where everyone was treated with kindness and fairness. The president did more than just speak about respect. He and his team worked hard to turn words into action. They met with banks, stores, and public offices to talk about how important it was to treat every customer and visitor with care. The president asked these places to train their employees to understand the history and feelings of the people they served. He wanted them to learn to see everyone as a person, not just a face or a name. Evelyn was invited to join some of these meetings. At first, she was nervous to speak in front of so many people, but she knew that her story could help others. She remembered how alone she had felt in the bank. She wanted no one else to feel that way, so she stood tall and spoke with a voice that was gentle but strong. She told the room about the day she was humiliated. She spoke about the hurt and the shame. But she also spoke about hope and courage. Many people in the room wiped tears from their eyes. Some nodded their heads in agreement. They thanked Evelyn for her bravery and promised to work harder to make sure respect was the rule, not the exception. The president watched these moments closely. He knew that change would not happen overnight, but he believed that when people came together with a common purpose, great things could happen. He spoke on television and radio about the importance of ending bullying and discrimination. He reminded everyone that it was their job to create a world where kindness was more powerful than hate. In schools across the country, new programs were started to teach children about respect and the value of every person. Teachers talked about the history of racism and why it was important to treat everyone fairly. Students wrote essays and made art projects about kindness. Many of them were inspired by Evelyn's story. They learned that standing up for others was a way to be brave and strong. Churches and community groups began to hold special events to celebrate Black elders. They told stories about their lives and achievements. They sang songs that lifted spirits and brought people together. These celebrations helped people see the beauty and strength in their elders, not just their age. Meanwhile, the bank where Evelyn had been humiliated was under pressure to change. They hired new leaders and worked with experts to improve how they treated customers. They put up signs that said everyone was welcome. They trained their staff to be patient and kind, especially to older customers and people of color. The bank also set up a hotline where people could report any bad treatment they received. This was a new step to make sure that problems were noticed and fixed quickly. Even though some people resisted these changes at first, many others welcomed them with open arms. They saw that respect was not just a nice idea but something that made life better for everyone. The community grew stronger as people helped each other feel safe and valued. Evelyn's granddaughter continued to get better with the medicine she needed. Evelyn's family was proud of her for standing up and being part of something bigger than herself. They saw how she had helped many people find their voice and courage. One day, Evelyn was invited to speak at a big meeting where the president was also present. This meeting was for people who wanted to help end bullying and discrimination everywhere. When Evelyn spoke, she told everyone that fighting for dignity was not just about one person. It was about all of us. She said that when we respect each other, we make the world a better place. The president smiled as he listened. He thanked Evelyn for being a light in the darkness. He said that her courage had helped inspire a whole nation. The people in the room clapped loudly. Evelyn felt proud but also humble. She knew the work was still ahead. She knew many people still faced bullying and unfairness every day. But Evelyn also believed that change was possible because she had seen it begin. She saw communities coming together. She saw children learning kindness. She saw leaders making promises and keeping them. Most of all, she saw hope growing stronger with each passing day. As the meeting ended, Evelyn looked around at the faces in the room. She saw people of all ages, colors, and backgrounds. She saw people who were ready to fight for respect and fairness. Evelyn smiled to herself and thought about how one small moment of courage could grow into a powerful movement. That night, Evelyn sat by her window again. The stars shone bright above her. She whispered a quiet prayer for all those who had been hurt. She prayed for strength and courage for everyone who wanted to make a difference. Evelyn felt peace in her heart. The fight for dignity was far from over, but she was ready to keep walking this path, step by step, hand in hand with her community and the president who had stood beside her. The story of Evelyn and the president was no longer just about a bank or a single act of cruelty. It was now a story about how people could come together and say no to bullying. It was a story about how respect and kindness could win, even in the hardest times. Evelyn knew that one day, the world would be a place where everyone, no matter their skin color or age, could walk into a bank or any place with their heads held high and hearts full of hope. The months after the president's campaign began were filled with new energy. The story of Evelyn and her experience at the bank had become a powerful message for many people. It was no longer just about what had happened to one woman. It was about changing the way the world treated Black elders and ending bullying wherever it lived. The bank that had once made Evelyn feel small was different now. The walls inside the building were the same, but the spirit inside was changing. The bank managers worked hard to bring new ideas to their employees. They brought in teachers and trainers who explained why it was so important to treat every customer with kindness and respect. The workers learned how to listen better, how to be patient, and how to see each person as a whole human being, not just a name on a screen. Evelyn thought about going back to the bank. First, she felt nervous. She remembered the cold looks and the unfair questions. But she also remembered the president standing up for her. That gave her courage. One day, she decided to visit the bank again. This time, when she walked through the door, the teller smiled warmly. The manager greeted her politely and asked if there was anything they could do to help. Evelyn felt a warmth in her chest she had not felt before. It was a small but important step toward healing. News about the changes at the bank spread to other businesses in the town and beyond. Stores, restaurants, and even public offices began to think about how they treated their customers and visitors. They invited trainers to help their employees understand the history and experiences of Black people, especially elders. They created new rules that made it clear that bullying and discrimination would not be allowed. The president visited Evelyn's town several times. Each time, he met with groups of people who wanted to share their stories and ideas. He listened carefully. He told them that change would take time, but that he believed in their strength. He reminded them that every voice mattered, and every act of kindness helped build a better world. In schools, teachers saw a new interest in lessons about fairness and respect. Children asked questions about why people were treated differently. They wanted to understand what they could do to help. Schools started projects where students wrote letters of kindness to elders in their communities. They visited nursing homes to spend time with older people and learn their stories. These activities helped children see that elders were valuable and deserved love and care. Churches and community centers held celebrations to honor Black elders. These events were filled with music, food, and stories. People came together to celebrate lives full of wisdom and strength. They sang songs that spoke of hope and courage. Evelyn was invited to many of these events. Each time she spoke, she reminded people that standing up for dignity was a powerful gift. The community that had once been silent was now loud with hope and determination. People helped each other report unfair treatment and supported those who were hurt. They knew that ending bullying would not happen overnight, but every small step counted. Meanwhile, Evelyn's granddaughter was getting stronger every day. The medicine Evelyn had worked so hard to buy was helping her heal. Evelyn's family was grateful for the support from the community and the president. They saw how one person's courage could inspire many others. One afternoon, the president came to visit Evelyn's home. He wanted to see how things were going and hear her thoughts. Evelyn welcomed him with a smile. They talked about the journey they had been on together. Evelyn shared her hopes for the future. The president listened closely and promised to keep working for fairness and respect. Together, they planned new ways to reach more people. They talked about starting a program to teach respect in all public places. They dreamed about a country where every elder would feel safe and valued. Their conversation was full of hope and determination. As the months passed, the changes began to show in many towns and cities. Reports of bullying and unfair treatment went down. More people spoke up when they saw something wrong. New laws were being written to protect elders from discrimination. These laws made it clear that treating someone unfairly because of their age or skin color was against the law. The president signed one of these important laws during a big ceremony. Evelyn was there to witness the moment. She stood proudly beside him as he put his name on the paper. The law promised to protect elders and make sure they were treated with respect everywhere. People cheered and celebrated. Evelyn felt tears in her eyes. She thought about all the people who had worked so hard to make this happen. In the weeks after the law was passed, more and more businesses and public places began to change. They put up signs that said everyone was welcome. They trained their workers to be kind and understanding. They made sure there were ways for people to report bad behavior and get help. Evelyn's story was shared on television, radio, and in newspapers. It inspired many people to tell their own stories. It helped people understand why respect mattered so much. Schools used her story to teach children about courage and fairness. The community where Evelyn lived grew stronger. People took care of each other and stood together against bullying. They knew the road ahead might still be difficult, but they believed that kindness and respect would win. One evening, Evelyn sat on her porch watching the sunset. The sky was filled with soft colors that seemed to promise a new beginning. She thought about the long journey from the day she was humiliated at the bank to the changes happening all around her. She felt proud and hopeful. She knew that her courage and the president's support had helped start something important. But she also knew that the real power came from people like her neighbors, her friends, and even children who learned to be kind. Together, they were creating a future where no one would be made to feel small or invisible. Evelyn smiled softly as the stars began to appear in the sky. She whispered a quiet thank you for all the people who had stood beside her. She promised to keep fighting for dignity and respect for everyone. The echoes of change were growing louder every day, and Evelyn was ready to walk with them into a better tomorrow. The days that followed the passing of the new law felt different. In Evelyn's town, the wind seemed to blow a little softer, and the sunlight felt a little warmer. The community that had once gone about its business quietly was now wide awake. People looked one another in the eye and greeted each other with open hearts. The story of Evelyn had changed more than a bank. It had changed the way people thought about respect, justice, and each other. Evelyn became more than a symbol. She became a leader. Her voice was now one that people waited to hear. Whenever she stood to speak, the room would grow quiet. Children would sit up straight. Elders would nod with pride. Young adults would lean forward to listen. She did not speak with anger. She spoke with calm strength and deep truth. She reminded everyone that real change did not come from shouting or fighting. It came from standing tall, speaking clearly, and refusing to give up. As her story spread across the country, others began to share their own stories. In one town, an older man spoke about how he had been followed around a grocery store as if he were a thief. In another city, a black grandmother told her neighbors how she had been laughed at when she asked for help using a phone app at the library. These stories poured in like rain, not to bring sorrow, but to water seeds of change that had been buried for too long. The president kept his promise. He traveled far and wide, visiting towns large and small. He listened carefully to each person who came to him. He told them they were seen and heard. He worked with leaders to improve schools, hospitals, and businesses. He reminded them that if people were taught to care when they were young, they would grow into adults who carried kindness like a shield. And if someone had not learned kindness as a child, there was still time to learn it now. In Evelyn's hometown, the mayor named a special day in her honor. It was called Respect for All Day. On that day, children drew pictures of heroes who stood up for others. Neighbors brought meals to elders. Teenagers helped clean parks and sidewalks. People wore buttons that said, "I see you. I respect you. I stand with you." It was a day that reminded everyone that kindness was not just a feeling. It was a choice made again and again. Evelyn's granddaughter had grown stronger and happier. She often sat beside her grandmother at events, watching her speak and smile. She saw the love in people's faces. She saw how one brave act had helped build a bridge between pain and healing. She looked at her grandmother with deep pride and whispered, "You are my hero." But even with all this progress, Evelyn knew the work was not finished. One day, she sat in a quiet garden behind the church and closed her eyes. She thought of all the elders who were still being mistreated. She thought of those who had no one to speak for them. She thought of children growing up in homes where kindness was not taught. And she thought of the power of stories. Stories Evelyn believed were more than just memories. They were tools. They were seeds. They were footsteps that others could follow. That is why she began to write her story down in a simple notebook. She filled it with not just what happened at the bank, but what happened after. She wrote about the people who stood up. She wrote about the people who changed. She wrote about the journey from shame to strength. One evening, that notebook became a book. It was shared in schools, libraries, and homes across the country. It was read by people of all ages and all walks of life. Many cried, many smiled, and many decided to take action in their own towns and neighborhoods. Evelyn's story had started with silence. It had started with someone being ignored, but it ended with voices joined together in harmony. It ended with laws, with learning, with love. Now, wherever you go, if you look closely, you might see a small sticker on a window or a card on a counter. It might say, "We honor our elders." Or it might say, "All are welcome here." Or it might be a photo of Evelyn, smiling with soft eyes and a strong heart. These are signs that something beautiful is growing. They are reminders that kindness is a movement, not a moment. And you, yes, you who are listening or reading this right now, are part of that movement. You have a voice that matters. You have the power to stand beside someone who is being mistreated. You can ask questions. You can tell stories. You can be the one who says, enough is enough. We will not let our elders be humiliated. We will not let kindness be forgotten. So let Evelyn's journey be more than just a story. Let it be a lesson. Let it be a mirror. Let it be a call. If the story moved your heart even just a little, if you believe that we need more kindness in our world, if you want to see more stories like this one, then take a moment right now to like this video or story. Click that subscribe button and stay with us as we share more voices that need to be heard. Because every time you do that, you are helping a message of justice grow. You are helping someone feel seen. You are helping us all walk together toward a better world. A world where no one is ever too old to be respected, and no one is ever too young to start making a difference. Thank you for being here. And remember, respect is not a gift for a few. It is a right for all. Let us build that world together, one story at a time.